Что это такое, блин? Что тут все зависло сразу, блин? Я не это имел в виду вообще. И не это я имел в виду, блин. Нет, о себе думать надо, тебе не надо. Ну нет, наоборот. Нет, не надо. Вот нет, наоборот. Наоборот, потому что да наоборот. Наоборот. Наоборот, потому что да, вот это есть. Все непонятно, что там все висит. Мусора, понимаю, да. Брусинов. Русинов, что ли, да? О. Что такое происходит? Это что, сбой какой-то в системе, что ли? Что это? Просто не все. Да нет, понял.
Earth is a pretty special and unique planet. So far, we haven't found anything like it in the entire universe. But that doesn't mean that Earth doesn't exist. In fact, they exist, and the chances are good for finding planets even better for life than our Earth. Now the hunt is on to find liquid water, because where there is water, there might be life. A new telescope is set to the 31st, 2021. It's packed with some amazing technology that might finally answer the big question, is there another Earth, or even a planet better than Earth, just waiting to be discovered? The human race is about to find out. Earth is the only planet we know of so far to have large bodies of liquid water on its surface, covering more than 70% of the planet. Other inner planets like Mars could have been wet early and evolved life before it became the harsh, barren world it is today. But finding liquid water on an exoplanet like the Earth, or even a super-Earth, is just the beginning of our search. Because if we discover liquid water on a planet's surface, the chances are good we're going to find life as well. This is because all living things need water to survive. Almost all the processes which make up life on Earth can be broken down into chemical reactions which require a liquid to break down substances. Observations from space and the ground have found abstract water to be one of the most abundant molecules in the universe. In fact, the Japanese spacecraft Hayabusa 2 recently brought back samples from an asteroid that has signatures of water and organic material. The most amazing thing found was the asteroid didn't pick it up from somewhere, but is the source. This means there could be many super-Earths with water just waiting to be discovered. If you want to see a video about the Hayabusa 2 mission, let us know. If we're searching for an exoplanet that's going to have liquid water, it needs to meet some criteria. For one, this planet needs to be a certain distance from its host star. If it's too far away, any water on the planet will freeze, unable to support life. And if a planet is too close to a star, everything would burn away, including oceans and any atmosphere. The interesting thing is that scientists from NASA have recently said exoplanets with oceans may be common in our Milky Way galaxy. But with the current technology we have, there isn't a way to detect liquid water on the surface of an exoplanet. Not just yet. There is a way to look at a planet's atmosphere and detect water vapor. And if there's water vapor in the air, chances are good it's evaporating from the ground or coming from huge oceans.
the best little software out there. I still have yet to see anything else that competes with it, so it has to be the best because it dominates this category.
In 2015, the Kepler Space Telescope found an exoplanet the size of 8 Earth masses called K2-18b that orbits a red dwarf star and is located 124 light-years from Earth. Its gravity is a bit stronger than the Earth, but it's the pressure on this planet that's intense. We'll get to that later. In 2017, data from Spitzer Space Telescope confirmed this super-Earth to be orbiting its host star in the habitable zone and taking just 33 days to complete an orbit around its star. K2-18b is the best candidate as a habitable planet that NASA has ever found. This is because in 2019, 2 independent research studies combining data from the Kepler, Spitzer and Hubble Space Telescope found a surprising amount of water vapor in the planet's atmosphere. Researchers took that data and examined the spectra of starlight passing through the planet's atmosphere during transits, or when the planet passed in front of its host star. K2-18b has a hydrogen-helium atmosphere with a high concentration of water, ranging from between 20 and 50%. It's even suggested that this planet has rain clouds. K2-18b also gets the same amount of radiation from its star as the Earth does from the Sun. So, if we could travel faster than light speed, could we go live on K2-18b? Some researchers say that the planet has a large and extremely thick atmosphere that creates high pressure conditions that might prevent life as we know it from existing. But there is also no surface for us to land on. That's because most of the planet is surrounded by a huge gas envelope. There is probably some sort of rocky core that's surrounded by a massive hydrogen gas envelope that has some water vapor in it. That means landing on this planet would be nearly impossible. And since the gas is so thick with an incredibly high pressure, any Earth-created spacecraft sent there would be destroyed, crushed and squeezed from the millions of bars of pressure. That doesn't sound like any place we can inhabit. There is probably some sort of from existing, but there is also no surface for us to land on. That's because most of the planet is surrounded by a huge gas envelope. There is probably some sort of rocky core that's surrounded by a massive hydrogen gas envelope that has some water vapor in it. That means landing on this planet would be nearly impossible. And since the gas is so thick with an incredibly high pressure, any Earth-created spacecraft sent there would be destroyed, crushed and squeezed from the millions of bars of pressure. That doesn't sound like any place we can inhabit. But don't give up hope on us finding a super-Earth just yet. First discovered in 1999, TRAPPIST-1 is an ultra-cool red dwarf star with a radius slightly larger than Jupiter and lies about 39.46 light-years away from Earth. On February 22, 2017, NASA announced the discovery of 7 Earth-sized rocky worlds orbiting the single star, and every one of these planets have the potential for having water on the surface. Just a year later, in February 2018, a closer study found that these 7 planets could have more water than the oceans of the Earth, and 3 of these planets are just the right distance from the star to be warm enough for liquid water. The Hubble Space Telescope was used to find that TRAPPIST-1b and C unlikely have hydrogen-dominated atmospheres like gas giants. This makes a strong case the 2 planets are rocky and possibly hold water. But both TRAPPIST-1b and C have extremely thick and hot atmospheres, somewhat like the planet Venus. But unlike Venus, these exoplanets are too hot to allow the formation of sulfuric acid clouds. It's possible both planets could be so hot their surfaces are covered in molten lava. TRAPPIST-1d is the least massive planet in the system, and likely has a compact hydrogen-poor atmosphere that is similar to Venus, Earth and Mars. It has half the gravity of our planet, and it gets about 4.3% more sunlight from its star than Earth does, and it lies on the inner edge of the habitable zone. This planet could have oceans or layers of ice. However, a new study shows that this planet could be more like Venus, with an uninhabitable atmosphere.
Хотите подарить родителям достойную старость, а не смотреть, как они и выживают на нищенскую пенсию. Если это не правда, пропустите это видео. Или регистрируйтесь на бесплатный практически онлайн-марафон «Первые деньги на инвестициях». Вы узнаете, как обеспечить финансовую свободу не только себе.
Просто реклама, понимаешь? Привыкать надо к этому, да. Просто понимаешь, никто об этом не знает. Меня тоже приучили, что как бы.
TRAPPIST-1e is an exoplanet which orbits around the habitable zone and the Earth's radius, gravity, and temperature. Astronomers say it has a compact atmosphere, and this one has the greatest chance of being an ocean planet like the Earth. This planet really does have the chance of being potentially habitable for life as we know it. TRAPPIST-1F is likely a rocky world like ours, but is under a massive water-steam gaseous envelope at very high pressure and temperature. This planet could very well have a thick ocean of liquid water covered by an atmosphere rich in abiotic oxygen. However, this exoplanet may likely be no more habitable than any other gas or ice giant with water clouds in its atmosphere. TRAPPIST-1G could also have a thick global water ocean covered by an atmosphere containing hundreds of bars of abiotic. And TRAPPIST-1H is a cold world with temperatures around minus 155 degrees Fahrenheit, similar to the Earth's south pole, and is likely covered in ice. However, scientists say it could possibly hold liquid water. The TRAPPIST-1 planets are all likely tidally locked, meaning that any of these planets could have a zone that's warm enough for life and doesn't get bombarded from radiation. Could have a zone that's warm enough for life and doesn't get bombarded from radiation from their host star. Even though right now there is a lot of unanswered questions about the TRAPPIST-1 system, it is the most thoroughly known planetary system apart from our own. But soon, we might find out that one of these super-Earth exoplanets does have liquid water and life.
Представляешь, там Новая Америка, Новые Штаты.
Если бы было просто зарабатывать деньги в интернет-рекламе, все бы это делали. Но все вокруг не богатые, и вы знаете почему. Реклама в интернете изменит.
Ну, не надо. Наверное, какой-то потребляемость есть какой-то, да, правильно. Это баланс, как бы, грань какая-то. Да. Физического и материального, да. Духовного,
The James Webb Telescope, a triumph of space science that might just be the most famous unmanned spacecraft since Sputnik, is set to be launched on Halloween, October 31st, 2021. And the planets in the TRAPPIST-1 system are the first worlds it will observe. Its main goal of making the first detailed near-infrared study of the atmosphere of a planet orbiting the habitable zone. To find signs
То лежок. Ну, дело, что ли, да. Кто тебя смотрит? Кто смотрит? Алло, гараж. Я не гараж, скажи. Видишь, я ничего не успеваю из этого. Отвлекаюсь постоянно. Он шел в террабокс. Террабокс нормально. Экономить надо. Не надо экономить.
Of an atmosphere, astronomers will use the James Webb Space Telescope's special near-infrared spectrograph, also known as a spectrometer, which disperses light from an object, such as a star, into a spectrum. Analyzing the spectrum of an object can tell us about its physical properties, things like the temperature, mass, and the chemical composition of the object. Atoms and molecules in the object imprint lines on its spectrum that uniquely fingerprint each chemical element present, and can even tell us about the physical conditions in the object itself. The exciting thing about the JWST is that it will be able to see oxygen in alien atmospheres of planets orbiting their stars. There are at least 4,000 exoplanets that have been found so far, and many of these are orbiting in the habitable zone. The presence of life forms such as algae, plants, and cyanobacteria here on Earth has filled our atmosphere with a vast amount of oxygen.
Прикинь, это предпринимательская система, ты понял? Ты не рассчитаешь, ты уже просто не понял, наоборот, ну да. Ну да. А ты сможешь это все удержать, говорю, ну да, да, вот это имеется в виду. А, ну да. Узнать все хочешь, да. Ну да. Ну вот имею в виду. А, на собой зашел, на собой возьму.
About 20%, which is far more than our planet would have if there were no life on it. Studying the Earth helps us understand what we need to be looking for if we're going to find a super Earth out there, and using the James Webb...
Смотри. Что еще скинуть? О, даже бокс. А с этими-то видосами что делать? Куда их девать все? Яндекс делит. Ну, да, нет, 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 да нет, да нет, понял.
Webb Space Telescope, plus a new technique developed at the University of California, Riverside, researchers hope to see signs of oxygen molecules colliding with each other in the atmospheres of distant worlds. When oxygen molecules collide, they block a percentage of the infrared light that would be normally seen by telescopes. The James Webb Telescope will be able to send back data that researchers can use to determine what the chemical makeup of an alien atmosphere is. The JWST will also look at water worlds. Some of these can come too close to their star, or build up heat from a runaway greenhouse effect, such as what happened to Venus, and they can lose their oceans to space. Radiation breaks apart the water into hydrogen and oxygen molecules. Hydrogen is the lightest, so it will quickly float out into space, leaving behind oxygen. Oxygen is one of the most exciting things to detect in a planet's atmosphere because of its links to life. But we don't know if life is the only thing that produces oxygen in an atmosphere. But the advanced technology and the technique will allow us to find oxygen in planets both living or dead. The chances of mankind finding life out there look good. We just haven't had the technology to detect it until now. Are you excited for what the James Webb Space Telescope is going to find? And do you think we'll find life out there? Tell us what you think. And don't forget to stay tuned here, because things are changing quickly, and it might be any day now that we finally find life and a possible super Earth.
Хочу сладкого. Ну, такого. Да. Не важно. Трёхся просто. Короче, их удалять просто, да, и делать короче.
Earlier this month, we held the second annual Gmtk Game Jam, which is a 48-hour game development marathon. I challenged designers around the world to create a game that fit a certain genre, but was missing one of the main mechanics that you'd find in that genre, like a platformer without jumping or a shooter without guns. The response was incredible. We had a whopping 1,054 games submitted, making it the most popular jam in itch.io's history. The games were then made available to the public, who left over 15,000 ratings. This gave me a short list of 100 games to play myself, and I've gone ahead and picked out the 20 that I found the most intriguing. These are all games that really ran with the theme and landed on something truly unique. They might not always be perfectly polished, or finished, or even massively fun, but they all have a certain spark and show the true potential of making a game where you don't just add, but remove. So, without further ado, here are the best games I've played from the jam, in no particular order. Fresh Merchandise, by developer Blind Mystics, is a dungeon crawler without combat. And when you get rid of swords and spells, this makes for a game about dashing past fireballs, dodging skeletons, and kiting bats around boulders. Instead of fighting, the devs put the focus on another part of RPGs. Surprisingly, the idea of your character slowing down when they carry too much stuff and get over-encumbered. Now, you have to think very carefully about which items of treasure you should try to pinch, because when you can't fight back, going slow is a death sentence. This is a very clever little game. Space Command 1980 is a standout example of one of the most interesting trends in the jam, which is games without direct control. For this cute spaceship game, the solution is to have you type in commands to make your ship move and shoot, like typing ML to move to the left, or SHT to shoot, or FWD to move forward. You'll have to be really on your toes because you can't react immediately with the press of a button. This one's a bit silly, but I like it. Allocation is one of a number of Metroidvania games in the jam, which certainly surprised me. This one is a Metroidvania without a set world map. Instead, you make your own by plopping down rooms on a map editor. You can then make your way to new areas where you don't unlock upgrades, but new room tiles for the editor. There's a lot of potential here. Right now you can set your own difficulty by using easy, medium or hard rooms, but you could imagine some risk-reward system to encourage you to use the hard ones. Gravity Golf is a golf game without clubs. So creator Hairthrow took inspiration from VVV and lets you flip the gravitational pull of the course. What makes it different from Terry Kavanagh's platformer is that you can't move the ball at all, so you're relying on physics and the slopes and spikes of the level design to get your ball where it needs to go. Nicely done. Crossfire marks another clear trend from the jam, which is games where you can't fight, so you have to find creative ways to kill your enemies. In this case, developer Skeet has you dodging through enemy bullets in the hopes that one foe will accidentally blast another. You can also slow down time to weave through particularly tricky patterns of ordnance, and if that's not enough, you can also unlock a reflective shield to bounce bullets back at enemies. It makes for a really fun shooter that busts apart the conventions of the genre. It's also very crunchy and juicy to boot. Fish is Nick Magnia's take on the Match 3 puzzler, only tiles don't disappear when you make a match. Instead, they freeze. To clear the tiles from the board, you've got to make a whole row of frozen blocks full of fish and turtles and penguin heads. It makes for a tricky puzzler that has you thinking several steps ahead, more like Threes than Candy Crush Saga. It definitely needs a bit more time for balance and whatnot, but this is a great twist on a classic genre. Monochrom is billed as a side-scroller without scrolling, which means these chunky outer bricks stop you from going back on yourself. But then you can rotate those bricks to open new pathways. it quickly becomes this unique Metroidvania where you're having to think about how moving the outer layer of the game will affect your ability to progress in the rooms behind and beyond you. In fact, it's almost like one of those 3D Zelda dungeons I keep banging on about. There's a lot of potential here. Well done, Teriyaki Phantom. Fireflies is a vertical platformer without jumping, and so instead of bouncing around, you ping your glowbug hero up the shaft like it's an angry bird. All the while you're being chased by an ever-rising ocean of lava. There's one very simple bit of design that makes this game great though. You have to touch a platform to restore your slingshot power. That means you can't propel yourself upwards indefinitely, and instead have to make tactical choices of how you're going to give yourself lift and replenish your slingshot power. Give some good visual feedback that your power is back online, and this could be a terrific iPhone time waster. Rat-a-tat-tooey by Cyberfly is what I was thinking when I said a shooter where you can't stop shooting, but just much better. You play as this Rambo-like chef killing sentient potatoes that are running about your kitchen. You don't have a say in when the chef will shoot or change weapon. Your only focus is on moving and aiming. One of the great outcomes of this idea is that different weapons work differently, with some, like the shotgun and flamethrower, requiring you to run up close to enemies, while others, like the rocket launcher, will cause splash damage if you get too close. This forces you to constantly think about your positioning in a way that most twin-stick shooters do not. In space, no one can hear you jump certainly starts out simple. As a platformer without gravity, you simply aim your hero at another platform, fire them off into the cosmic unknown, and let them float on over. Things quickly get more tricky when you latch onto attractors and repellers to bend your arm. It's all a bit Mario Galaxy, just in 2D, and with fewer plumbers. Demon Ball, by Room of Snakes, is a brawler where you can't touch your enemies. So there's no kicking or punching here. Instead, you have to boot a football around to murderize your opponents. It's a simple concept, but it's fun to try and weave through enemies while simultaneously kicking the ball. I wonder if it would be fun if the ball became deadly to you after you kicked it, giving you another thing to dodge. Dunno. Won't Look Back is a fantastic example of how removing one element from a game can create all sorts of interesting consequences. As the name implies, this is a puzzle game about a character who can't walk backwards, meaning you have to think very carefully before you make a move, as any step forward is permanent. Even the simple act of walking through a maze becomes a tricky puzzle. You can't look back, but you've certainly got to look forward. Do Unto Others by Tom Cheshire and Sean Rugg is a fighting game where you have to damage yourself to hurt your opponent, which almost kinda just about fits the theme. But I'll let it off because the game is this crazy puzzle where in each level you've got to quickly find the fastest route to killing yourself. Maybe throw yourself in the sea or get struck by lightning. When health packs appear, you've got a crazy puzzle where in each level you've got to quickly find the fastest route to killing yourself. Maybe throw yourself in the sea or get struck by lightning. When health packs appear, you've got to fight the urge to pick them up because they'll actually heal your opponent instead. If the devs made it so that in some levels you actually can hurt the other player, this could become a manic WarioWare-like reaction game. Rave and Claw by OST Senior is a game where two mechanics were removed. It's a top-down shooter where you can't move and you can't shoot. Instead, you can achieve both with a hookshot, and you guys know how much I dig a dual-purpose mechanic. So the game is all about grappling to nearby walls and hook points and trying to latch onto enemies before they have a chance to body slam you. It all comes together wonderfully and is expertly juicy for a Game Jam game. I really dig this one. Sleepwalker is another game with indirect control. Here, Kyle, Alex and Marina have made a platformer where you play as a wizard who helps a sleepwalking hero to get to his goal. To do this, the wizard can shoot stars into the environment to kill enemies, remove obstacles, create bridges, power springs, and deliver sandwiches. What makes this immediately great is that the star must physically travel from the wizard to the environment, meaning that 1, you can accidentally shoot your own character, and 2, you need to account for the time it takes for your star to travel. It adds this real extra level of depth that you don't always see in jam games. Fire Escape is another platformer without jumping. Instead, you fire an ember out like a grenade in Worms and hope to land on something flammable, like grass or a brazier. This basically teleports you around the level, letting you move on to the next challenge. And it's made all the harder when you realise that water is slowly creeping up against your flame. This has lots of potential and is almost Nintendo-like in its focus on one smart idea. Pong Out is a perfect example of how clever ideas can arise when you remove something fundamental. So this is Pong, but without scoring. How does that work? Well, now your paddle is your health bar, and it gets chipped away every time you hit the ball. The best strategy might be to avoid the ball entirely, but then you run the risk of the ball getting stuck behind you and obliterating your paddle like you're playing Breakout. Nice work, Fiddlerettes, very clever. Camp Shepherd started out as a driving game without steering, so you plop down gravitational towers that change the path of a speeding automobile. And I guess that actually makes it a tower defense game without enemies. Whatever the case, this is a cute puzzle game and is all about optimization and trying to do more with less. I like it. What goes up doesn't necessarily come down in this clever game from Lonebot. It's a platformer without falling, which means that jumping into the air puts you into this spinny anti-gravity position until you can find your feet again. And that quickly shifts things into puzzle territory, as every leap must be thought through. Once the game gets a grappling hook and companion cubes, you really start to see how this could make for an excellent puzzle game. And finally, Elsewalker is another game about indirect control. This time you're telling a robot how to navigate a level by placing floppy disks into slots. Only the slots are laid out like an if-else statement in a programming language. For example, if wall ahead, jump, else walk. That makes your robot move forward and jump over walls. It's a fascinating idea that doesn't just make for a fun game, but teaches players a little bit about computer code, and that's a really special skill. Good on you, SuperTry. So that's an incredible amount of innovation for just 20 games, but of course there's a lot more I could have talked about, like SNES-style puzzle platformer Walkie-Tori, the attractive Chick Magnet, the Keyboard Fighter and the friendship-ruining Super Sumo Skater. 0.5 presses is an educational game about Super Mario 64 speedrunning categories. Funk Sync, where your gun fires in time with the music, is this close to being incredible, and the magnetic platformer Elfin would be wonderful with better level design. The invisible platformer Forward isn't much fun, but it's certainly interesting, and Text Adventure is a surprisingly playable interactive fiction, considering it has no text. So even if you didn't make it into the top 20, I hope you had a wonderful time. Remember that game jams are about learning, practicing, prototyping, challenging yourself.
Ну чё уж ты? Я тебе ничего. Ничего. Ладно. Ну нет, наоборот. Ага, да. Что, надо опять что ли эту штуку шевелить? Думаешь, да? Как надо? Можно, кстати?